the guy who wants to live forever, don't die guy, Bryan Johnson, has taken quite a large dose of psilocybin mushrooms, 5 grams, for his experiment and his longevity research that he does into trying to live forever thing. He didn't do it for recreational purposes, obviously. So he publicly went to Twitter last week, I think now, and he recorded in very high amounts of detail his journey with taking magic mushrooms, and he recorded both the experience and the aftermath and his thoughts on the experience, which I thought were very interesting for someone who's quite known, very popular, and quite mainstream guy to give us this sort of information and take mushrooms who are still a little bit, stigmatized, I would think.
Yeah, but becoming less so, because a lot of people, especially in the US, in this sort of health space or alternative health space, at least, not saying Bryan Johnson's completely alternative, but it's been popular for a while with people like Dave Asprey, sort of the bulletproof coffee guy, and all those Silicon Valley types who Bryan Johnson is in many ways. They always, for many years, have been into this stuff, and same with the podcast bros, Joe Rogan, all those guys into that, and also Robert Kennedy Jr. Recently, it was suggested, and I believe it, in this memoir that came out about him. He had this so-called affair with text affair with this journalist, and apparently he took DMT, and he had spoken positively about psychedelics in the past. That's interesting because it's like this convergence between this sort of psychedelic health movement, which is in a way more left-wing, if you have to put a political brand on it, and that converging with the more sort of alternative health, well, like the almost conspiratorial side of the MAGA right-wing party.
Like, yeah.
That is interesting, that convergence. I don't think it is as clear as left and right.
No, I wouldn't say it's necessarily left and right. And I wouldn't say, but I would say there is a distinct difference when someone like Bryan Johnson does it compared to podcast bros in general, because this was done with a very clear intent on measuring as much data as possible during the experience. When Bryan Johnson took the mushrooms, they were scanning his brain, they were taking blood samples, they were taking urine samples, they were taking scans, they were measuring all of his biomarkers and collecting data. And apparently he's going to do it 2 more times over the next 2 months as well. So 1 per month to kind of gather. Obviously, we do everything in triplicates if you want to have a scientific kind of experiment. So he's going to do it 2 more times, and this is all to gather data. Obviously, the experience itself has a lot of spiritual and, I don't know, metaphysical connotations and implications, as I would say. But the key here is that he didn't just do it because he wanted to be enlightened or he wanted to, I don't know, find the new reality that we cannot perceive and all that. He did it to actually see if there is any difference for his physiology and for his body in terms of regeneration of cells, rejuvenation of your neurons and all that. So I would say this is...
Then the debate is like, what's caused that regeneration or any positive effect that might happen? What's caused it? Is it the chemical, or is it the effect of the mental changes that chemical just opened up and allowed those mental changes to occur? Some more, maybe you could say it allowed the brain to have that flexibility to rewire itself, and then that rewiring has an effect on your body. So the mental health affected the physical health. So I think there's been this debate for a while, like, is it the actual drug which causes the changes, or is it the mindset that causes the changes?
I know, I do think it's more the mindset that causes the changes, because we already know that the placebo effect is so strong. Like, the mind, we know, can have such a profound impact to the health of the body. When your mind thinks it's getting something that's going to help the body, even if it's not actually getting something that's going to help the body, the mind will make the body better.
Yeah, so even the scientific types have to admit that the power of mind is more impressive than you might the everyday materialist might give it credit for. But you're not saying, correct me if I'm wrong, you're not saying that it's placebo, but it's just a
No,
placebo
I
is
wouldn't
another
say
type
that
of
it's.
effect.
No, I would say that it's like similar in. Exactly, I would say that it's similar to the placebo effect. The mind has the power to heal the body, and maybe there's more than one way that this mechanism can get activated. It can be activated obviously by the placebo effect, but maybe it's like it gets activated by something like psilocybin mushrooms.
Because I guess with placebo effect, and I don't really know much about it, like in terms of how it works mentally or chemically or whatever. But that's more just positive thinking. So if you expect something,
Mm,
then you're gonna
precisely.
sort of manifest it in that way. I wonder if psychedelics are like that. I think they definitely have that aspect, or they can do, but it seems like they're more complex as well.
Yeah, because it's not as simple as usually the placebo effect, how it's done in clinical trials, is that someone is given a pill and they're told that this pill would treat their condition. People are already expecting that they're taking this pill to treat condition A. So they think they're being treated actively for the condition A by getting this pill. But in clinical trials, that pill could be a sugar pill. It's not
Yeah.
actually any active drug in there. So I would say this is not the same because you're not taking the psychedelics to actually treat something specific. So I wouldn't think that the placebo effect would work in that way directly.
Yeah, well, they've always struggled to do placebo trials, haven't they, with psychedelics?
Yeah, exactly.
Because you know
You
it's
know
like
it
a
if you got
psychedelic.
if you got slammed with 5 grams of
Yeah.
of magic mushrooms. um, but yeah, it's very interesting to see, and it will be very interesting to see the data as well that comes out to see if his longevity markers for the case of Bryan Johnson have kind of come up
Hmm.
after the 3 experiments that he's going to do with them.
Because some people would rubbish that sort of data. It's just one person sample size, potentially not that helpful. But there's also not very many people doing what Bryan Johnson is doing, and to have gone to that extent with things. So I think it would be interesting to at least see, and then you can. I think it'd be wrong to sort of completely poo-poo that data. Maybe you'd have to do other studies, but on the back of it to back it up. I think it would be interesting.
And I think this is where it's really good because someone who's such a public figure as Bryan Johnson doing it, I think it opens even more the path for larger scale research being conducted, maybe with volunteers
I think
and larger
though
scientific studies.
it is as large as you could really imagine. The research going into this is really massive. There's so many studies coming out about this, so I think it's just more about adoption, and it's interest. It would be interesting to see like how many people see these type of figures, and then
Mm.
they end up doing it themselves, or whether there's actually not many
Mm.
people who. It'd be interesting, yeah, to see the broad reactions to the different reactions that people have to this. People who may have never taken a drug in their life.
But that's the thing, though, as you say, if we see more people just randomly taking them, I don't think that this is very good either, because he has acknowledged, he said it himself in the posts afterwards, he's done this under supervision, under guidance, under the right environment. This was not done recreationally in a club somewhere. This was not done under the influence of alcohol or any other substances. This was done in a very controlled environment. And this is where my reservations come in for something done at this scale so publicly is that the average Joe on the street would just say, oh, yeah, that looks so cool. Maybe I'll just go in and do the same. Uninformed,
Yeah,
not knowing the full impact of how this, because we already know there could be a lot of downsides on taking these things and even long term consequences for some people that they have taken them, like some irreversible kind of damage to some people's mental state.
yeah, I guess it is possible. Even if it's short term, profound damage because of bad integration, and that's pretty bad as well. So yeah, I think obviously these are powerful substances, and if they're going to be used, then it probably makes more sense to have them done under in a sort of control setting with people who are well trained.
And that's what I mean, and that's why I
Not to say
think
they never can be taken safely without it, but it's just maybe it's certainly for legalization. I think there's a much stronger argument for to just legalize it for for clinics to use.
exactly. I
Not,
think
not not that that also creates problems as well, because then it creates a stranglehold on, well, the only people legally allowed to use it are clinics, and
yeah,
that
but
gives
at least
power
it
to
will.
corporations, which can have benefits and can have downsides.
Yeah, but it's often the case where we've seen that with the use of cannabis, for example, which has now become much more prevalently used for medical purposes. And in a lot of cases, that led subsequently to becoming legalized fully for people. I would say it's not a bad thing to see clinics actually being able to use it and
No,
effectively
it's
becoming
essential for
legal.
the adoption and legalization
Exactly.
of it. But yeah, it's just it might remain inaccessible for a lot of people. Well, if you look at MDMA, it got legalized in Australia, I believe,
Mm,
and you can also do it in clinics in London.
mm,
The prices, if you have the money, that is, you can do it. The prices are pretty extortionate
mm,
for
yeah.
some of these substances, which aren't natural.
Mm, yeah, I mean, it could be a bumpy road ahead. But it's
Yeah.
better than nothing. It's better than just like, shutting the door, classing them with everything, with the worst of the worst kind of
Mm.
addictive and self destructing drugs, and then saying, no, no one can touch them, shouldn't do anything ever with them.
But they still
And
got a bad reputation in for some people. So there's still like newspaper headlines which will sway people to
mm,
being more anti them. So just in the last week, I saw two. So
really?
yeah,
Good to know.
just ones like, so one with Robert Kennedy Jr. using them supposedly because of this new revelations from this autobiography of this journalist who dated them, or text dated, whatever. And yeah, if you are that sort of person who's doesn't like Robert Kennedy Jr., you're going to look at that and think, oh, just another brainworm, another crazy thing he's doing, and it's not surprising. That sort of psychedelics sort of, that's another crazy thing. It feeds into that same narrative, and so that's going to uh, make those views more entrenched on that side. And then the other one was, the it's someone, I think, suing. She was part of the MK Ultra experiments that the CIA did in America in the 60s, I believe. And yeah, they used, as part of that, LSD for brainwashing. So
Really?
so she's suing for that. So that's another thing when you read that and you think, yeah, LSD is not such a good thing.
But I would think this is not so much the LSD that was the problem in this case. It was probably uh, the way it was used.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but
But yeah, as
that
you say, the
could,
headline would
it
be, yeah.
can put people off.
Yeah, I can see that. I suppose in both cases, there is an underlying issue that is not so much the substance it's used to, in the first case, discredit probably RFK or
Yeah,
like damage his reputation.
yeah,
And
which
in
is
the
probably
second
why it's
case,
wiser not to be pro psychedelic, but just to be maybe pro um, psychedelics in the right context.
yeah,
Uh,
pro
because pretty much every example where people cite of unresponsible use of psychedelics is not done in the right context.
exactly. Yeah. And and I think in the case of Bryan Johnson, it's interesting to see as well what he said about his experience in terms of of his perception of the experience, and how he very much detailed by reading his Twitter posts how his perception changed and how he felt everything was new and novel and interesting, and how he felt very hopeful for humanity as well and very connected to other people, which is something that a lot of people say that have uh, taken psychedelics before, and they said that their awareness and their connection to everything around them and the world was significantly increased during and after the experience.
Yeah, which is
And
quite reassuring in a way that whatever, say it's something spiritual that you're ascending to, or it's something more primal that we're descending to, whatever that experience is, who knows. But either way, that's quite comforting that that view of the world is still there. It's not like the drug is, well, obviously some sort of drug does increase serotonin and other chemicals, but I think for people to take them, you get the idea that these experiences are not necessarily special or non-ordinary. They're almost like as you are as a child. Not completely, I would say, but there's overlaps there, and it's almost like the enlightened state isn't really an enlightened state at all, but it's a return to a state without conditioning, as we were as children.
Mm. Yeah, he
With
did.
hopefully a bit more compassion for other people, so you're not just seeing the world through your eyes.
Yeah, and I think what he found interesting as well is that he thought that a lot of people told Bryan Johnson that they thought that as soon as he had this experience, his ideology about resisting death would actually collapse and he would accept death by doing them. But apparently, reading what he says is that he didn't actually feel that, and he's actually even more determined to um, find a way um, to fight death in this case.
Which is interesting because I can make the analogy with religion as well. Like if you see like if you think of psychedelics as something so profound that they change everyone's worldview to see the truth,
Mm.
then that way of seeing psychedelics means gives you a bit of cognitive dissonance because you see some people taking them and they're like in the camp of RFK Jr. And like supporting Trump, or they're in the camp of Bryan Johnson wanting to live forever, or they're the maybe I don't know. Let's give an example like Terence McKenna or someone who thinks we're going to live forever, but we don't need to worry about life on Earth so much. So and then all left wing types and activists as well who've taken psychedelics and been inspired by psychedelics. So it's interesting that if they're experiencing the same truth, they're coming up with different trajectories, which you could argue are at odds with each other. And then also, as I said, with religion, you could also see that same thing happening. You sort of, if religion is true, or if whatever it is, let's say Christianity is true, why are some people using that to like persecute gay people and be like rampant racists, and then some people are using it to like they're doing Mother Teresa style, going to India and helping as many people as they can. So it's interesting, but I don't know. I don't have much else to say, but I'm just interested that effect happens.
Yeah. I also found interesting that he believes that death in the future will be seen kind of how he believes that at some point there is going to be the equivalent of GLP-1s like Ozempic for weight loss and all that and Manjaro, but the equivalent of that for avoiding death effectively. And
Really,
like
because
one
I was under
injection.
the impression that he didn't see it as like just something that a pill could solve. It's something which is multifaceted, and that you have to get your whole lifestyle right. It's not
I
it's not impossible, but it's not so simple as just taking a pill.
I think he believes that in the future we'll have something that will be just as easy as doing an injection and just reversing all of your biological aging. And at that point, he was saying in another tweet that at that point people will just stop, will like saying, "Oh yeah, death is a good thing and we should accept it" and all that. Kind of like how people used to say the body positivity movement until recently. All the celebrities would say, "Oh yeah, like it's fine to be like plus size and overweight and all that, just because it's like there is a moral right to be big." And now we see a lot of the celebrities having really stopped talking about it because they're all on Ozempic and they're all skinny now and turning skinny. And he thinks that a lot of the people who are saying to him now, "Oh yeah, you should accept death. You should just give up. You should just come to terms with it." As soon as we get to the point that AI and science and technology gives us the tools to just package the treatment to one job or something and stay young forever or reverse biological aging, that a lot of people will stop saying all these things and make him be the good person.
Yeah,
If that's even possible.
Mm. But
I don't
yeah,
know.
like, I'd say maybe I do like his positivity.
Mm.
That does. I think we do need more positivity about the future. But maybe he is a bit naive, like in terms of thinking that there's going to be no equal con to the pro, as it were. So
Mm.
if you look back throughout history, nearly every time, if you think that was a good period, there will probably be something bad.
Oh yeah, I mean,
And if it's not happening, even if a city is doing everything perfect, probably on its outskirts, it's creating hell for the people on the outskirts. So there's always a yin and a yang. Not exactly like not like necessarily some law or anything, but it does seem like to just see this solving aging as the thing to solve everything.
and I mean,
I'm
even
a
if you
little
take,
skeptical.
I agree. And if you take the weight loss jabs that have just recently come out, there's a lot of side effects on them for a lot of people. A lot of people don't talk much about the side effects, but there's a lot of side effects for people who take those weight
Yeah.
loss jabs, even if it's not necessarily health breaking side effects. There are side effects. There's nothing that doesn't
Yeah,
come
well,
with
that's
side
why I
effects.
think maybe I could rephrase what I've said. It's not, I think there is sort of a yin yang sort of effect from taking any sort of man made thing. But maybe there's also been a yin and yang of throughout history because it's most of history is his story. It's humanity's psyche effectively being played out on the outside. So it's always wars and famines and well, not always famines, but sometimes famines as a result of humans getting it wrong. Not in terms of like God punishing them, but it's actually literally you're getting it wrong, or you're not getting it right in terms of if we organize society properly, we can protect it from sources like famines to a great extent. If you can have, for instance, if you organize society properly, you have clean water, which, yeah, for the
It's
societies
paramount.
who could do that in history, then they got a sudden level up in terms of life quality and everything else. So yeah, perhaps Bryan Johnson could be right, but it's there could be if we change the psyche,
Mm.
then there is no longer necessarily that sort of yin yang effect of something bad has to happen for something good, because that's sort of like take the alcohol, a good thing, and then you have the bad results later, or take the weight loss drug, and there's probably going to be some immediate effects or side effects, immediate or otherwise, in the future for you or other people. So, and the same with living for longer. Then if everyone's living for longer, then that creates problems.
Mm.
But yeah, I think there is no end. Brian Johnson's probably right. There is no end to what the human ingenuity could achieve if it is freed up and not traumatized by limiting beliefs such as, yeah, I need to accept death or whatever. Like, not that that's a bad thing, but it's just, yeah, you shouldn't necessarily clinging to life. That's perhaps better phrase that way.
Yeah, but that's the thing though. Accepting death has been the cornerstone of almost every well, has been part of almost every religion and spiritual practice and faith around the world for centuries. And now I think it's
In a way, yeah, it's been very powerful in many philosophers' arguments, but also it's been, you could argue the opposite, that religion and all this stuff and science has progressed to a great extent because we wanted to avoid death or to preserve our legacy.
yeah.
And so we do all these grand things. So we get recorded in stories, or we write stories, or we build things, build
But that's what
statues,
I mean. It's
build
all done.
temples.
But that's what I mean. It's all done because of the fear of death and the knowledge that our life is finite. And if we end up in a situation where that might not be the case anymore, this is a complete 180 of most of the you know spiritual teachings and way of life that we've had for millennia.
Yeah, but Brian Johnson may be kind of correct in the yeah idea that if we can get rid of that psychological barrier, then we create a mental change as a result of the physical change or the physical technology, which means the physical technology is okay. Now you can live forever, then that creates a mental change, and then that actually means but you can be quite hopeful about the future, because if we're freed from the ultimate fear, which is the fear of death, then a lot of philosophies would argue that that disarms every other fear, and then you could potentially have a version of history without all this yin and yang, opposite and equal reaction to everything. So,
But
yeah, maybe.
but then what about of all the religions and different spiritual practices that say this is not that this world isn't the world we're meant to be living in, that this is just one part of our trip?
Well, you could argue there will be some people who will do that, and maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, but they'll die.
True,
The
they
only
will
people left
die.
will be the others.
But what if then we actually create the real hell in our world? We all are immortal and we all live forever, and then we're all just trapped in a constant hell that we just have to live, which is actually not where we're meant to be for eternity.
Yeah, maybe there is some afterlife, and if that's the case, then living forever, I think, it doesn't really matter, because you're not really living forever. What he's saying is he's not going to live forever.
No, no.
I don't think so. And even if you live for a million years, it's nothing.
It's not forever, yes.
According to God's time, however you take that, that's a little second. So it doesn't really matter in that way, I would imagine. Just trying to think of it from a logical standpoint. Obviously, things are not necessarily always logical, but that's the best we can think.
Yeah, and I mean, in real world terms, I think what Bryan Johnson does it is good in terms of if we can end up living to, let's say, 100 years old, but we can have the physical health of someone who is like 30.
Yeah, I think that's
That's
the crucial thing. It's naive just to think living forever. And I think tacitly in the people who say that they want to live forever, they're also saying they want to extend health span as well as lifespan, is the way it's often put.
Precisely.
And I think there's a lot of people would like longer health span. Even if it's because a lot of people's health starts degenerating after, like, don't know, even like after 20. Like,
yeah, literally, there's
days,
people.
it's really bad.
And that's what I think as well. If we can get any kind of research that can improve cellular longevity, that would result to us having healthy cells, healthy muscles, healthy bones for longer, is where the key lies, because that will create so much better lives for people as they grow older, which they can be independent, they can be active, they can be contributing, they wouldn't need to be, for a lack of a better word, a burden in society because of 100 health conditions that, as you said, in many cases are a result of our man-made environment that we've placed ourselves in, like working and living in cities, eating unhealthy, eating processed foods, like all this stuff. If we can reverse the damage that we've done to ourselves, I think that's a good start.
Yeah. And I really think, like, we're living in an age where science and spirituality / religion are really both pointing to the same endpoint. Not the same endpoint, but they're pointing to the same place in terms of spirituality, religion, the words to get you to maybe be more in touch with the present moment, have a better mindset, be more grateful, and have faith in life and joy in life. That mindset ends up changing your physiology and also allowing you to live from a more aware state where you're more conscious about what food you're putting into you. And you're not just doing it in the very crude way of junk food, that's all bad, or I can't have this, I should not do this. You're just more in the awareness, and you're able to know what your body needs and what you don't want to put into it. And because you're not stressed, you're not eating out from a state of wanting to fill a hole, which is really a hole which can't be filled by food. And also you're more in touch with the natural rhythms because you'll want to spend more time in nature, and that will help guide you into better health in an effortless way. So in terms of just going to bed at the right time because you're in track with the circadian rhythms of the day. So
yeah,
so that's the spirituality side, and then science is just pointing also to this state of how to live healthily. Now we already probably got enough science to at least convince the logical brain that just do these things and you'll get 99% of the health you could ever get.
Yeah, and as you said, listening to your body and kind of doing what is good for it. As you were saying earlier, for example, Bryan Johnson sleeps at what time you said? 8 o'clock?
I believe it's 8:30. I read
8:30.
around there.
This is crazy. For most people, I don't know anyone who sleeps at that time personally. I don't know if you do, for example.
No.
Like, that's what I mean.
I would like to, maybe. But yeah, that requires almost a drastic reconstruction of your day. At least for me, I've got a lot of evening activities. And so it's sort of
most people, not just you.
Yeah,
we all do have evening activities.
So it's amazing the sort of sacrifices he's made. I remember watching the No Die documentary, and one of the lines that I remember from that is he's found more happiness as a result of relegating the ego or the thinking brain and not getting rid of it, but relegating it. So it's in service. So science and reason are in service to the body in terms of getting the health right, seeing yourself as a whole organism. And just, he needed the stats, because he's a stat guy, to tell him what is right and wrong, you know.
What is best.
But yeah, what's optimum. And then he was tuning to that and just surrendering it almost to what nature demanded, because it is nature, even though if he's using tech to tell his
pinpoint
brain,
it. Yeah.
Either you're aware to the things, or you need the stats to actually tell you.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what I'm saying. He sleeps at 8:30. I would say this aligns with what you think is natural for us to sleep at 8:30, because the sun is down. People for thousands of years wouldn't have been sleeping at 12 o'clock at night, because what are you going to do if there's no light outside? If you didn't have, until the era of like risen a few hundred years ago, people wouldn't have electricity, wouldn't have lights, wouldn't have anything. They would just have maybe candles, some fire, but there's nothing to do. Now we're pushing that back.
Yeah, and we need to do these. Well, we don't need to, but because we're working all our day, then you want to make the most of that time in the evening to spend time with friends, to do activities, to eat nice meals and whatever. But that all screws up your sleep and ends up screwing up everything else in some ways. But the opportunity potentially is, in the modern world, if we didn't have to be so tied down to our work routines, or we could shift our work routines, shift our work hours. The same with schools as well. Because of AI, we don't need to create new robots. So we could have different school days, and we could all be a lot more flexible about optimizing the work week for human health and flourishing, rather than for making more money for yourself or for whoever, for the tax man, for the rich man. So that could be quite exciting to look at, and that'd be quite a nice project for individuals and society as a whole to work out. Okay, we got this freedom now that AI affords us, because it creates that income generation and creates that base level safety net. Now we can think how best to organize our day in terms of human health. And because everyone else is doing the same thing, well, not necessarily everyone will do it at once, but
slowly
you'll get communities of people doing it, and that will take off and balloon from there. So that could be quite exciting.
It would be. I think it would be amazing to see a more human-centric and like version of our society, rather than.
So ironically, AI potentially could allow us to feel more human.
Yeah, rather than a unit for the capitalist machine.
Yeah.
to keep producing.
Yeah. And a lot of this anti-capitalism or pro-capitalism ideology, which is so present in a lot of us, that causes a lot of stress.
Yeah. No, don't get me wrong. I do think that the benefits that we've accumulated so far is because we've lived in a capitalistic society.
Yes, it's almost like it was a necessary trajectory to go through.
Precisely. It's not like we
And
would
I
have
guess
had any of this.
any advanced culture who develops brains for size or complexity as humans have done, as long as they don't destroy themselves, it's inevitable they'll have to go through this sort of evolution, as it were, at one point or another. And it's evolution, like giving birth, is not usually very comfortable. So
Mm.
you could still reframe everything as happened as maybe it didn't happen perfectly, but it happened in a way which probably would have inevitably happened, and we can hopefully be positive about going forwards.
At the end of Bryan Johnson's post about his experience, he kind of added a few words about what he believes the future will bring, and he believes that a revolution will happen
Yeah,
where effectively we will have new sort of the emergence of new archetypes of people who are going to be the caretakers of existence in this case,
yeah,
and people who are defiant of death and view self-destruction as primitive and low status, who take the continuation of human existence as seriously as profits, fame, or power, and they will emerge as our high status societal idols in the future. So
yeah.
I just wanted to
I
mention that.
think that would be good if you could sort of channel the efforts and intentions of the most powerful, arguably most capable people to some extent to good. Then I think that would be great. And I think we'd all be caretakers, and we all perhaps want to be caretakers of existence, and that would give us some sort of transcendent purpose that transcends just the individuals, which is also practical.
Mm.
And so everyone can be on the same page about it. Hopefully, maybe not, but if
Mm.
you, I think if you just get the core right, so you put together, get stop, like we got
Mm.
distracted by a lot of issues, like I don't know, transgender issues in sport,
Social
the
issues
Epstein
and
files or whatever, and I think yeah, and left wing, right wing things, yeah, like things which people are just never going to agree on at this state of human existence, such as
mm.
I guess even abortion. Like, so I would advocate for putting that to one side, all of that, and focus politics just on total health. So you're looking at the health of the individual, the health of the community, health of the country, health of the environment, channeling all of your effort into making that, healing that, and that will, then it will inevitably flourish. And then you're in a state where you can maybe, and if there's still problems, go and think about things like abortion or transgender people in sport. So rather than distracting ourselves with all this,
Mm.
basically what is entertainment really, or the abortion thing, maybe not, but yeah,
Yeah, a lot of things
people
is
looking at the transgender debate in sports, people just like to get riled up for one party or the other.
yeah, people like to engage in a lot of internet drama, in a lot of internet outrage, I think, which doesn't even translate to a lot of real world like anger and disagreement
Mm.
for a lot of people.
And yeah, like if we're not fully healthy as an individual, as society, then it's like analogous to making decisions when you're really tired, or thinking
Mm.
about big problems when you're really tired. And it's always better to sleep on things.
I can see what you say. I think that in order, I understand what you're getting at. I think probably, as you say, we need to solve the fundamental, not fundamental issues as such, but more of the 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 foundations of our society before we can actually heal all of these
Yeah, I guess
socio-political issues.
some sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs esque pyramid,
Mm.
where there's no point worrying about, say, transgender participation in sport, which is perhaps higher up in the privilege of things to decide on. First, you have to get the health right.
But the
and
problem
and
is, I
that
suppose,
includes also economic, a basic economic safety for people. Everyone has to be earning enough from their jobs to
well,
be
we
able
can't
to.
even agree on that.
Well, yeah, that is true. So maybe, yeah, maybe it has to be done without. Maybe it has to be done from the bottom up, from individuals, and not from corporations. I expect government to do this, even though we can vote that way. But I think, yeah, it perhaps it has to be done individually, and I guess as people like Jesus and many other spiritual guys said, we'd have to not think about money first. Obviously, yeah, pay what's due to Caesar, pay the tax man, pay your bills, get by. But then your next priority is just your health, and
But that's
then your community's health.
yeah, and that's the thing though. As you say, a lot of people, they work, they pay their bills, but they don't have enough to live at this point. And that is where we're headed for more and more people every day. More and more people work jobs, pay taxes, and they have no money left for anything.
Yeah, well, it may have to be a case of waiting until AI just solves things for us, but it might not do that. So the alternative is we have to solve things for ourselves, which means probably for most people getting a job which sort of just pays enough to get you by, and then focusing on your health and of other people. So it's not like saying money's a bad thing or a good thing. It's a practical thing so you can have that first level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
Just
No,
enough to provide the basics, so shelter and whatever.
it's easier said than done, because if you're on your own, that is fine. It's easier to do that if you're just one person. But if you're trying to have a family and you're trying to raise a few children, then that becomes exponentially harder to make sure you can have enough to provide for them and cover their needs and make sure that you give them the best start in life. So I think this is one of the reasons why we don't see people having children anymore.
Well, yeah, that's true, and I think maybe that disguises unhealthy or perhaps unhelpful views on raising children in terms of how expensive it is. Like, if you're going to pay kids university fees, yeah, then that does start getting expensive. But actually raising a baby in the first, several years of life is not that I've done it, but I've spoken to parents who actually say, and I think it's wise to actually speak to parents rather than speak to people who haven't had kids about this, because they know. So they say it's not as expensive. Not saying everyone says this, but it's not as expensive as you think to raise.
I think
to raise a kid as well, because you don't need to raise them to have everything, every toy or because throughout 99% of human history, kids didn't have that much, and they were still generally happy and healthy, probably healthier than we are now. So, like with yourself, it's quite cheap to just do the basics in terms of human health. And if you do that sort of 20% of effort in terms of improving your health, then you end up living about 99% of how healthy you could be. And that's the same for kids as well. Focus on their health, their mental health. And that's the best thing you can give them as a parent, rather than getting them into university, forcing them to get great grades, because all of that's going to be less important these days in the future.
I agree.
When AI can outperform us already. Already, like, AI can write a better history essay than most people who are age 16, 17, getting their history A levels.
I agree. I agree fundamentally with a lot of what you say, because, as you say, in the past, we have thousands of years where people raise their children practically with nothing, and humanity is still around. But at the same time, today, to survive, usually you need both parents to go to work after a child is born. Otherwise, you are going to be having only one income coming in. And one income supporting one family today, in most places, in most countries, is not enough to support a family. And then the problem is that if both parents go to work, then you need to be paying for childcare. So you're effectively checkmated on what you're going to do. In terms of, like, you're either going to be losing your income because only one parent works, or one parent stays behind, and then you end up living with less money, or you both go to work and then you have to pay childcare, which is thousands in places, thousands for childcare.
Yeah.
And that's where the problem lies. That's what people mean when they mean children are expensive. Not that you have to obviously, I think even diapers now and formula are becoming expensive. But aside from that, like, I don't know the prices, but I think the extortionate part is actually childcare
Yeah.
for a lot of people.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, I'm sure there's some things I hadn't considered there, but
And also,
I
if
think
you think about it, wait, before you go on, and there is also the fact that a lot of people now are having children older, which means that their parents are older as well, so they're not able to be young enough to take care of the children either. Even if you say, oh
well,
yeah, grandparents and stuff.
yeah, that is obviously a demographic change to some extent. Although still a lot of young people having children, but yeah, with the older parents, the same thing applies. As age is only a number to some extent. So if you get your health right, then you're going to be a better parent age 40 than someone who doesn't get the health right age 20. So I think if yeah, so this sort of total health philosophy in a way that
Mm,
should solve that problem. And then the other thing about the expensive diapers or whatever.
mm,
Firstly, things weren't that expensive 20, 50 years ago. So
mm,
anything which is more expensive now than it was back then I think they shouldn't be that expensive in terms of we can find a way to make those cheaper, or you can get them cheaper, or you can go without them or go with an alternative. There's usually a cheaper way to do it, and just because everyone else is doing one way doesn't mean that's the healthy way or the efficient way to do it. And then
mm,
when childcare been expensive, I guess I don't know exactly
mm,
how you'd approach that. I think probably for a while people will have to work. Both parents will have to work unless you're got one parent earning a substantial amount. But that doesn't mean both parents have to work an extortionate amount of hours. It's probably healthier to prioritize time with your children and your own health to give those children the best chance in life. Yeah, maybe childcare. We sort of need to go back to, if we can, sort of more communal looking after of
mm,
children and getting involved, the grandparents involved, all that
mm.
sort of
No, I agree.
start things.
I think things aren't headed in the right direction for a lot of these things, as you say. And I think maybe this is why, the kind of US slogan about make America great again, where they say go back to the times of back of the 19, what,
Yeah, that's the question. When was
is,
America actually great?
yeah, when was
But yeah, I
America
would
great? I
imagine
don't
it was
know.
probably the 50s, maybe
Yeah.
JFK.
And like maybe this is a lot of people, that's what they actually want, to go back to a simpler way of life, less expensive way of life, less intense maybe way of life. But I don't think we can go back there in a lot of countries,
Mm.
because there were a lot of problems back then as well that I don't think we want,
Yeah, well,
as you were saying.
as I said earlier, yeah, like every time in history has got a lot of issues as well. But yeah, I think people want to go. Yeah, for instance, with if say I don't know, give this example, like diapers were cheaper 50 years ago, then that's a good reason to go back 50 years ago, not necessarily. We don't need to get everything bad back or everything good from there. We just need to look at what we could get, what we could reapply in our modern society, which we've lost, which we know we could potentially have because we've had it in the past.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I
But
don't
yeah, the
think we're
past
gonna.
is the best proof for what can be done in the future in a way because it's already happened. So it's not always the case where you can get back to it, but it's proof that we can do it. It's physiologically possible. It's within the laws of physics. I guess that's the same thing applies with us and going back to Bryan Johnson seeing the world as a child. And enlightenment isn't necessarily this thing which you go and chase and transcend. Just getting back to that state of how you were as a child, that curiosity for things, that joy for life, and
Mm.
just balancing that with not just being egocentric and being compassionate for other people.
Mm. I do think that we all become definitely way too serious when we lose. The older we get, and the more we kind of get into the adult world of working all the time, and then people have families and stuff, and I think in general we all become too serious, and we lose a lot by losing the more playful and carefree side that we had when we were younger. and I think that is to our detriment for sure. So I think it's very important for us to kind of be more, I wouldn't say carefree, but a bit more less serious. I think there's a lot of studies that have been done about people laughing less as they grow older as well, and stuff like that. And I don't think we laugh enough, dance enough, scream enough, even, and all these kind of things. So it's like,
Yeah.
maybe I'm not saying revert to a baby state or a child state, but it's like a bit more of it would be better, probably. And I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah, I
what
guess we've
Bryan
got
Johnson
way
tries to
imbalanced one
say.
way, and yeah, probably need to make a bit of room for what you say.
Yeah. Um, yeah. That's all I had for today. I had other topics to discuss as well, but I think we often talk about AI a lot recently, and I do want to get into more AI topics, to be honest.
Yeah, that's fair.
So
Yeah, I
we can
think
park it there.
Bryan Johnson's good because he's very positive about all this stuff, and I think the thing is AI is going to happen. So all
Mm.
these people warning about AI, I don't know. I don't know if they help, and they may even hinder.
I agree. I agree. I think there is a lot of hate, AI hate online. A lot of people say AI is bad because it's creating slop. AI is bad because robots are taking over. AI is bad because X, Y, and Z. But it's here. It's not going away anyway. What we should be focusing on is how we can use it best and how we can use it to improve everyone's quality of life rather than like trying to stop it or try to limit it or try and preserve jobs that don't need preserving, for example.
Mm.
No one wants to be doing a
Yeah,
backbreaking job. I've
it's
said it again.
yeah, yeah. It's like a tidal wave, and so we can't completely redirect it, but we could nudge it in one direction. It's either going to hit a big city, or it's going to fill in a pond with lots of
Mm,
half dead
I
fish.
like that. Yeah, exactly. So it's like how we should focus on using it as a tool for better, for good things as much as possible. And if the bad things come, we should design ways to you know give people income that lose their jobs from AI, or if people aren't having as much money because AI is replacing them, maybe we should be taxing the companies that are using AI to fund universal basic income or something like that.
Yeah, maybe, but I think yeah, we need to get to humans being we need to humans to be liberated effectively first. We need to get people healthy and if, to some extent free, and then we can make those decisions about how to politic everything.
Yeah,
But
I
otherwise, we're making all these decisions half asleep.
I understand that, but would you want to be in a place where we have like 50% unemployment rate? Like what is that going to mean for our society in the meantime if we don't make these decisions?
Well, bad unless you have something more important than income.
But that's what I mean. But exactly, it's not just, maybe as you said, we'll replace income with something else, but if you end up in a society where we have so much unemployment, we are screwed in the meantime, and we don't have anything to kind of any plan for that. We
Mm.
need to have a plan for that, even if that plan isn't the best plan or whatnot. We need some kind of plan. Otherwise, the social cohesion will collapse at that point. If you
Yeah,
have
but
every company
I
needing
think
one
all of
person
us,
instead of 1,000.
90% of 99% of us don't need to worry about that because firstly, 99% of us aren't going to have any impact on whatever that plan ends up being, and you can bet your bottom dollar there'll be plenty of people who are really stressed and thinking about this, so they're going to do that anyway. So the best thing we can focus on is just living healthier and mentally and physically.
I understand, but you can't live healthier if you don't have any funds or a quality of life that allows you to live healthier.
No, I would disagree. Obviously, it helps maybe to some extent, but lots of, well, I guess Jesus was case in point. Buddha all these guys who are, you can debate like whether they existed or not, or how they existed or who they were, but there's lots of people who live lives along those lines, for instance monks or whatever, and they don't need hardly any money.
But
So it's not like you need it. I think that's a limiting belief. It's helpful, but it's not like essential, and all that worry is perhaps not helpful.
I think it's not it's a false comparison. I think to compare monks with people that live in urban centers, because urban centers require money to even get outside the door.
To get outside the door.
Yeah, of your house, you need money. While a monk doesn't need money because he doesn't live in an urban center. If you live in a city, you can't even go from point A to point B if you live in London without using the tube.
Where you can walk.
You walk for 3 hours.
Well,
so you lost your day then and you cannot do anything.
Well, firstly, as long as the weather's nice, and that's quite a nice day. But also, why do you need to walk that far in London? That comes from a scarcity mindset of you need to have these best possible experiences rather than just enjoying the small area of one part of London for a day. That's the mindset problem. It costs money because we have unrealistic expectations.
But it's not just about doing something, it's about just existing in London. You need money. It's not like you could be living like a monk in the middle of London. That's all I'm saying. That wouldn't work.
Yeah, well, maybe don't live in London for that. But yeah, like you could live in London and not have an income. If you really do want to go the monk lifestyle, then there's plenty of monks in London.
To be honest, you say that, and I've seen some people are now starting to live in their vans in London, in their vehicles, and because they cannot actually afford to actually live in any place. And that kind of shows how unlivable London is, to be honest. But going back to the actual conversation about jobs and income and all that, and about the unemployment rising, I was reading the other day that Amazon is planning to effectively lay off up to 600,000 workers by 2027. Just to give you an idea. This is almost up to 75% of its warehouse and logistics network will be automated, and therefore no people are going to be involved in it. Think about that scale of job losses, but happening to the entire job sector.
My point is not necessarily it's going to be easy, but probably we don't need to worry about it so much in terms of as individuals, because like giving birth, this is going to happen to some extent at least, and it's going to be painful to some extent at least, and also it won't last that long in terms of, people will probably be very displaced perhaps for a little while, but it won't be forever, because you can't have society where 50% of people are not earning money. That will pretty quickly lead to drastic change by government to help remedy that. So I think, and that will probably involve some sort of universal basic income. So we don't need to worry about that. That's just going to happen.
I hope so.
And it might be easy, it might be hard, but it's going to happen. And I don't think.
Oh yeah, I do think it's going to happen. But I'm just saying to you the numbers for you to visualize what's coming and how quickly it's coming. That's why I'm mentioning all that about how many jobs and how quickly. Imagine if every company effectively fires 75% of their workforce. What will mean for unemployment and people's lives. And it's okay to say, oh yeah, don't worry about it. But it's easy to say it in our position where we don't have any dependents necessarily as such, any kind of like children in this case, or specific things to worry about. But for a lot of people who are really dependent on their income, it's a crazy thought to know that maybe in the next couple of years their job might be gone. And this is people who have worked in the same job for like 20 years or something.
Yeah, no, it's very understandable people getting upset by the idea of it, but I don't think it's going to help things that much getting upset, if you know what I mean. So
no, I understand that
it's like a same idea of basically good philosophy is control the controllables. So just do your best and things might be easy. We might just get a nice rollout of some sort of universal basic income, and you can retrain if you have to, or we won't. And then, yeah, society has bigger fish to fry because it's not just you using your job; it's everyone. So at least everyone's in the same boat. But the thing is, if everyone's in the same boat, we can't control it. It's just gonna happen, or it's not gonna happen. Like AI is a tidal wave which has been let out of the box already.
Yeah, we'll just see what happens.
Yeah.
I agree. That's all I had. We can leave it there for today.